Devastating for that community and for all of us to see what has transpired today. Earlier, our CNN.
She was in a meeting this morning. And there were about 7 people in there as well, who was shot in the leg or the foot, who came crawling back. And she said that she cowered under the table during that moment and called 911, as did the other people in the room. She said she never saw the shooter, that she was under the table, that the shooting happened in the hallway. And to hear her describe it, she said that there must have been 100 rounds. And I asked her to clarify that. I said, really, truly 100 rounds? And she said at least.
When the vice principal came crawling back, what happened at that point? What did she say? How did the vice principal manage to move or escape? Did she describe what was the situation as he was crawling back?
She said that there was confusion. There was yelling, and understandably, she said there was yelling in the hallway, and she couldn't tell for a while if it was the police or the shooter. When I talked to her, she was still inside the school. The school's on lockdown, so she couldn't tell. She didn't know if the shooter was dead yet or still there.
What did the vice principal look like when she saw him return?
I didn't hear her describe that. She said, she said, listen, this is a nice town. This is a nice school. These are the kinds of things that don't happen there. She noted this was not some high-powered meeting. It was, about one of my children who was in 2nd grade there. And she's tearful. She's just understandably panicked. And she said they marched at some point. I don't have the length of time, but she said at some point after the shooting, they marched us out in the hallway, right past the 2 bodies laying in the hallway in a pool of blood.
CNN has learned at least 20 people have been killed, 10 of them children. I want to bring in our John King out of Washington, who has more information. John, what are you learning?
Suzanne, I've been speaking to a federal law enforcement official here in Washington who is getting information directly from the scene. State police on the scene, FBI officials on the scene in Connecticut. And this source cautioning that, as you know, in these situations, the numbers almost always change. But the official tells us he has now seen consistent reporting from the scene that there are more than 20 fatalities, that most of them are children. The source says, again, expect those numbers to change, but he has now seen consistent reports of the death toll being closer to 30 than to 20. He's hearing a number consistently, says 26, 27, but says he doesn't quite trust that yet. Says he believes the number, though, will be closer to 30 than to 20. Also says that from reporting from the scene from law enforcement officials there, both state and federal, Suzanne, that the shooter is dead, would not give any details on how the shooter was, whether the shooter killed himself or was killed by police at the scene, but does say the shooter has, quote, a direct connection to the school. Would not describe for me at this early point of the investigation what that connection is.
So he wasn't able to say whether or not that connection was a parent or somewhat an employee of the school at the time?
He knows that information, has that information from the scene, but was not willing to discuss it at this point. Says it's very sensitive at the moment, wants to defer in terms of some of the release of the most sensitive information to authorities on the scene, especially because, as you know, we're hearing from our other correspondents that they're going to houses, known houses, friends and associates and the like. As the investigation unfolds, there are some things they just want to keep private at the moment.
Lieutenant Paul Vance said that he was actually, they didn't give the numbers, the fatality numbers. They're in the process of still notifying some of the families. Is your sources saying that essentially they're not putting out those exact numbers until they get a real handle on being able to reach some of those parents and let them know what is going on?
That's exactly right. And they also want to go through every last nook and cranny of the school, unfortunately, just to make sure that there are no other fatalities inside, or also no other people who might be hiding inside. And they say the governor of Connecticut and state police on the scene have urged everyone not to give a firm fatality number just yet until they make sure that all of the families have been specifically notified, Suzanne, and all of the families have received official word. But again, the source I'm speaking to has been for several hours now getting reports directly from the scene, and he says consistently those reports say the number of dead closer to 30 than to 20, and sadly, most of them are children.